Let's move on and talk about Bayern Munich then. They suffered a defeat to Inter this week, but they're not out of it, are they? They're far from out of it. They missed some crucial players, perhaps most significantly Musiala, amongst others. But they're not out of it. If they got a great performance, David, they're back in the mix. And yet you both seem to have ruled them out of getting through this next.
Is that because we're out on Bayern, or is that because we're in on Inter?
I think we're so in on Inter.
Oh.
We've been asked before on this podcast about who can win the Champions League, and I said maybe first knockout round, Inter are going to be the danger team. They're the one everybody wants to avoid. So losing your first leg at home and then having to go to the San Siro to face arguably the toughest team, the most draining team to face in the
don't concede goals.
Yeah, in the competition, is not very, encouraging. It's remarkable. I think it's 7 straight defeats for Italian sides going to Munich in the Champions League. Inter first team to win since 2011, I think it is there. And it was Inter as well.
I was going to say, it was them, wasn't it?
It was Inter who did that as well. Italian sides, I think, have conceded at least twice in those games, every single time, but not Inter. And they could have scored more as well. But they showed some very good finishing, I think, Inter. Lautaro was clinical. People will be laughing saying Lautaro clinical, what? But he was.
I mean, this was a good week for Champions League goals. Those 2 Inter goals in Munich were perfect.
And there could have been an even better one. I don't know whether you saw the Barella pass. It was essentially just, I think he was 20 yards off his own area. Half turn, spin, ball right down straight through the heart of Bayern, and then Lautaro unfortunately lost his footing a little bit. But Inter could have had more. They were absolutely fantastic.
And I guess the thing is as well, look forward to the second leg and see who's fit for Inter. We can go on to talk about Bayern's defensive issues at the moment in terms of personnel, but so much of Inter's attacking verve was cut off in that they didn't have Dumfries and they didn't have DiMarco, who's not fit enough to start, so he's not on the bench at the moment. Can you imagine what they would have done to them with those 2 on the pitch?
I think they would have run them off. I think they might have beaten Bayern about 4-1. I genuinely do, because and the way the interplay is set up so much to get everything from Dumfries and DiMarco.
Yeah.
So the fact that they got this win without them, people's talking about, Bayern were missing Musiala, or Bayern were missing this. No, Inter were also missing key players.
Yes, but who is the weakest link then for Bayern? Is it any of the players?
Funnily enough, it was Harry Kane in this game.
Yeah.
Okay,
because in a Champions League quarter-final where you're at home, you're perennially strong at home, you're playing very good opposition and very difficult to score against. They conceded 2 goals in the entire Champions League before this game, Inter. And Harry Kane had a series of presentable chances and couldn't take any of them. Now, look, Harry Kane has still done great for Bayern. There's no argument about that. He's done a great job there and everyone's very happy with him. But you need your 100% guy to step up and do what he does at this moment, and that he wasn't able to. Look, strikers miss chances, I get it. But he can't miss that many chances in a game of this magnitude. So, especially when they're missing Musiala. And Musiala is a player, and we've talked about Bayern's defensive problems, and that was always going to be an issue for them. With the injury to Neuer and the injury to all those defenders that they have at the moment, they were always going to have to score a few to win this game. Now, funnily enough, the 2 goals that they did concede, they weren't giveaways. So I think they defended pretty well in the circumstances and in the context. But they have more than enough chances to get something out of the game, Bayern. It's funny, if you're Company, I don't think you go back and think, what could I have done differently there? I don't know what really he could have done differently.
The Elise and Guerrero positioning is getting brought up quite a bit, I've noticed since then.
But I think Guerrero did a pretty good job. I mean, he's not the sexy choice, and I understand that Müller came on and scored, but it's incidental.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a tap in. Yeah. He was just there. But actually, Inter struggled to pick up Guerrero quite a lot, and he had a couple of good efforts on goals. Sommer made that save in the first half. He had that one that he whacked over the top in the second half that just narrowly went over. So, look, we've got to square it. The fact is, Musiala is totally irreplaceable. So they had to try something, and I thought throwing Muller in, which while it would have been the romantic replacement for Musiala, he cannot replace, current Muller cannot replace Musiala.
I couldn't agree more. And I know you say he played well. I don't think Guerrero can. I think you have to play Elise in there. I think we saw in the Nations League games Elise playing in the 10.
Yes.
I would be using him there. I think company should give him an opportunity there to do it, because on the right-hand side against what is largely a back five, it is very, very difficult for him to influence, because he can get doubled up every single time. If you put him in the middle, I think there's that opportunity for him to roam and to find some gaps.
Yeah.
He was probably their best player, Bayern, Elise, in this, in my opinion, in any case. But what I was going to ask, though, and it's prompted by what Football Shoot asks on X, if you can answer this, but I'll add a bit more to it. He asks, does this result bring into view the inexperience that Vincent Kompany has at managing in the Champions League? You can't avoid that, can you? On the one hand, if it's a case of, two coaches here, you've got Simone Inzaghi on the one hand, who's been here before, and Vincent Kompany hasn't. And although you said, Andy, that, you can understand if he thinks, what could I have done differently? Isn't it about responding to that moment? Because you've been there before, you know what all the consequences might be, or how you should manage the game.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, though, if we look at, say, Simone Inzaghi, if you want to make the comparison in the Champions League, he's got it wrong a few times to get to this point where he's got it right. Of course. And they got it wrong with a very strong game against Atletico last season. Yeah, maybe. I think maybe it is. I mean, look, I think if we go back 12 months, no one's expecting Kompany to be in this position even as the coach of Bayern Munich, let alone in the quarterfinals of the Champions League. I would say globally, he is someone who has had the biggest effect on the atmosphere at Bayern rather than necessarily the tactics. I don't feel he's a tactical genius or anything like that. But I feel with the amount of players that they've got out, I think that was it got a really good performance out of them in the circumstances. Look, Inter are better than them. I don't think there's any real disputing that, to be perfectly honest, particularly in this current form. I think if you were going to criticise Kompany and the way that he set the team up, I think you're really looking at the last 5 minutes, because there's no way they should be scoring an equaliser, which they've worked incredibly hard for, with Muller 5 minutes from the end, and they go on and concede a winner. That shouldn't happen at all. Now, it's funny because I think if you look at Kompany overall, if you look at the first 2/3 of the season, he improves them defensively, like to an incredible level, actually. Now, I think there's probably a limit to what you can do at the moment, because at the moment they've got Dyer and Kim Min-jae as the centre-backs, and those are the options. You've got fullbacks who are not really specialists in that position, in Lima and Stanisic, playing it in that game. Stanisic has missed a lot of football this season as well. So I think that's a bit of an issue. And then you've got Kim Min-jae. I mean, he gets booked for a tackle on Martinez, on Lautaro Martinez in the centre circle, and
rash. That's
nothing that Kompany can do anything about. I mean, like, if your players are going to do stuff like that, you've got to say, come on, help me out.
It's just really reckless stuff, I think, to do something like that.
But I think even before these current injuries, we spoke about this recently, it's started to go a little bit awry defensively. Because if you go back to, say, the start of February, since then, they've conceded 3 at home to Holstein Kiel, who are going to finish bottom in the league. They conceded 2 at home to St. Pauli, who never score, and they conceded 3 at home to Bochum. So you're going to get chances, and Inter didn't really get that many chances, but they took them because they're of exceptional quality.
I've still not really been that impressed by Kompany. I think what they've done in the Bundesliga is, for me, quite relative to the talent at his disposal that they've got. They've still got more resources than everybody else. I think they are where they should be anywhere. I don't think where they are is due to Kompany being there, and specifically him. I think the talent, what's there, I think there could have been another manager there, and they could have been in the position that they are. But that's just me, and it's still very early days. It's not indisputably wrong, is it? I think the jury's definitely out. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Harry Kane thinks that they've got the players to turn things around, so we'll wait and see.
Yeah, but are those players on the pitch or in the stands? That's the question, isn't it?
Do you know what? Great minds think alike. That's the first thing I thought about when I read that quote.